When I was a couple weeks short of my 70th birthday, I started thinking about my mother's mother, who lived to be 100, and her mother, who lived to be 102, and my father, who lived to be 90, longer than anyone we had ever heard of in his family. I began to think that maybe our generation could be the first to routinely live to be 100. When I talked about this at family dinner one night, my granddaughter, who was 5, said,
"What are you going to do for the next 30 years, Grandpa?"
Hello, I'm Dr. Janet Price.
"And I'm Gregg Kaloust. And we are Oldish. And this is our podcast, Oldish."
If you're oldish or know someone who is, please join us every week for conversations amongst ourselves
And our special guests.
about what it means to be oldish in the 21st century.
If you ever wonder whether you're getting old, you're Oldish. What are you going to do for the next 30 minutes?
Hi, I'm Janet, and I'm Oldish.
Hi, I'm Gregg, and I'm Oldish. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, Oldish, Conversations on Aging in the 21st Century. This episode will be one in our continuing series of episodes we call the Dinking Game. They are shortish episodes, and they tend to draw parallels between the game of PickleBall and the game of life. We both feel as though there's a solid connection between the two, and so we enjoy talking about it, and we hope you enjoy listening about it. So what we're going to talk about today is partner communication. And by partner communication, what we mean is when you're playing pickleball, most of the time, most pickleball players, especially oldish pickleball players, play doubles. There are games that you can play singles, and the pros play singles, and young people play singles. But oldish people who play singles are soon out of breath. So oldish players tend to play doubles. They frequently play doubles in a semi-disorganized venue, playing open play, where you don't know until just before the game starts who you're actually going to be playing with. But sometimes you might play in a tournament or in organized games where 4 friends meet to play pickleball on an afternoon, and you just keep the same team so that you play with your partner fairly often and have opportunities to develop your communication skills on the court. But when you're playing open play, recreational pickleball doubles, you frequently are playing with people that you don't play with often. And in many cases, you haven't ever played with before. And that's okay. The communication parts tend to be similar. So in pickleball, there are several times when partner communication is important. One is, whose shot is it? The ball's coming over the net in the direction of the players, and theoretically both players could get to that ball and hit it back, or but one player feels that he or she has maybe I should say they instead of he or she, one player feels like they have a better shot at getting it. So sometimes they'll call out, "It's mine," or "I'll get it," or "I got it," or, words to that effect. Or sometimes it's, "You get it." But more often than not, and this is the thing that stimulated the desire for this discussion in my head, more often than not, nobody says anything. And either nobody hits the ball, or you both hit the ball, sometimes hitting each other and hitting your paddles together in the meantime. And there's a real simple solution for that, which is to say, "I got it," or "You got it." With one exception, and I don't know whether you've run into this, Janet, but I've confirmed this with many people that I play with in the place where I often play, and in some other places too. And it's clearly the case with me. I don't know whether it's a jinx or not, but a very high percentage of the time, if I use the exact words, "I got it," I hit the ball into the net, and the next thing I say is, "No, I don't." Very high percentage. The same shot, if I don't say I got it, I hit the ball fine over the net, and it all goes great. But if I use that very expression, "I got it," I don't. So does that happen to you?
So is that an argument for not saying it?
Or saying something else. I think I understand the mechanism. I think saying I got it switches my focus from hitting the ball to talking about hitting the ball. And so I just miss it. And as you know, in pickleball, if your paddle is angled just the tiniest inch different, can make a difference between the ball going over the net and not going over the net, because the margins for error are very small on this small court, little plastic ball with a little paddle. So have you seen that happen though?
Yes, it happened. It has happened to me. I wonder if the word, instead of saying I've got it, to say mine means it's succinct. It's not saying, don't worry, I got this, which sometimes we say and often then don't. But just to say something like mine means it's, I think it's coming where I can get it and I can try for it. I find if I say, you take it, usually I say it too late. They aren't expecting me to say, you take it. So yeah, I find that a lot. And I think for me, first of all, I just want to say that I think it's an interesting conversation for us to have, in that as you and I were preparing for this episode, I found myself thinking, isn't it interesting that as an oldish person, sometimes we can be so bad at it, or, we still have so far to go. And so I just want to acknowledge that even when we're oldish, there's always so much more we can learn about how to communicate effectively with our partner on the pickleball court or people in our lives outside of the pickleball court. And we're never too old to learn more about how to communicate with our others.
I agree. I agree with that. And that's one of the other aspects of communicating in pickleball and in real life. This is one of the reasons I really like pickleball, is that there are these lots of lessons that easily map over to real life, but are totally inconsequential in and of themselves. I mean, if we don't say I got it or mine or whatever, and so we end up not making the point, in real life, who cares? It doesn't make any difference at all. But in real life, sometimes if you do that, but there is the part about, you would think that in our oldishness, we would have caught on by now, but that definitely is not the case. I do have one problem, and it's funny. I always think about this when I say it. Every time I do this, I got it. No, I don't. My brain says, well, just say mine. But then my brain says, you remember that scene in Finding Nemo where the seagulls say mine, 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 mine? And now I can't do anything. So,
That's funny.
it's not easy being me, I'll tell you.
Don't be a seagull. Don't be a seagull. That's your mantra. Don't be a seagull, or I'm not a seagull. Yeah, one of the things that happens to me is, as far as pickleball is life and all that can happen on the court, is I find myself being aware that I tend to not say these things much to people I'm around. Like, it's you take it, or I'll take it, or whatever it would look like outside of the pickleball. So I noticed that it's like, I need to speak up. And I know that that's true for me in general. And so so when I'm on the court, it highlights, it's okay, speak up, let your partner know. It's better for them to know. And then the other part is, I find myself having such an internal dialogue, like, I need to speak up, but I'll also find myself thinking, I need to be more assertive. I need to be more aggressive. I shouldn't have let that go, assuming my partner would take it. First of all, I didn't say anything. And second of all, why shouldn't I have tried for it? And then I'll try to be more assertive, and then I'll bump into my partner the next time because they're going for it and I'm trying to go for it. And neither of us are saying I'll mine or I'll take it or whatever. And then we bump into each other or whatever might happen.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Use your words, I think, was a lesson we were supposed to have picked up in kindergarten, or maybe even before that, but so many of us don't. And then there's this other pitfall of real life as well as in pickleball, which is, you should have known I was thinking that. And, things like in just lots of different ways, in a pickleball way is, we were talking about, the forehand takes the middle, which is a kind of a rule of thumb. And it's the way a lot of people have been taught, is that the forehand takes the middle, but it's not always true, except in the mind of the person who thinks that forehand takes the middle is always true. If we're playing together and I think forehand takes the middle is always true, and you think the person who has the better shot should take it, then we have different approaches to the game, which we probably haven't articulated with each other and worked out, because probably in real life, it doesn't, probably in real life and in pickleball, it doesn't make that much difference as long as you're in agreement. So maybe at the beginning of the game, we could talk about which rule of thumb are we following? Forehand takes the middle or best shot takes the middle. And then we play that way. It's only going to take 15 minutes. So it's not like your life is going to be ruined because you had to try it somebody else's way. Oh, and trying it somebody else's way is an important key to successful partnership too, isn't it? Yes.
Yes,
it's
it
okay.
is.
Yeah, I'll try it your way. I think that in general, there's also some sexism involved in that particular item, which is the person whose rules take precedence is usually the man because he does it. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily right. There's a woman that I play with often, where I usually play, who's quite a bit shorter than I am. And we have a rule that she gets the low ones and I get the high ones. That works out.
That makes sense.
That works out pretty well. One other thing I want to talk about is the unspoken kinds of communication. Just being on the pickleball court, being aware of where your partner is and what position they're in can really make a difference in knowing whose shot it is or where to make the next shot go to without words being spoken, and just being aware of each other. If I chase a ball off to the right-hand side of the court, are you going to follow me and cover the middle, whether it's your forehand or not, or just we're moving up to the net? Are you going to, that's that sort of thing. So kind of unspoken communication that is not, you should know what I'm thinking, but I should pay attention to what's actually going on. And so should you. And so there's this unspoken, the rhythms of the game and knowing what the score is and, who are we playing against, and things that you don't necessarily talk about, but are just unspoken kinds of communication.
I wonder what it'd be like to just talk all the time. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that, but to be able to say, because as you're talking, I was thinking, I do think about sometimes, especially if we miss the point, and I think to myself, oh, I didn't realize that my partner was back there, like so far behind me. And let's say it was going to go out of bounds and I tried to hit it because I didn't realize, like, I made a bad decision or inaccurate decision. But if I had known where my partner was behind me, I could have let it go because my partner can decide better as it's coming towards the boundary. So I just was imagining constantly saying, I'm behind you. I'm by the back line. I'm over here by the left side. But people don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't whistle or something, but don't do that. Also, another thing I want to talk about at some point, not today, but involves that kind of communication, is giving your partner instructions while you're playing. Don't do that. Don't do that. In between games, you can say, but no, well, it's really annoying for everybody. If you're in a tournament and you're trying to improve that game, you might talk to your partner about what just happened. But if it's somebody you just met, don't assume that they came there so that you could be their instructor that day.
Can you give an example? I mean, one thing that comes to my mind is when I'm going to a court nearby where I live and we're just matching up with whoever's around. And there have been times when I've hooked up with somebody and there's four of us and one of the people starts saying, like you go for, you have a play and the person says to someone, okay, so I think you should try to stand this way. And if you can hold your racket this way. And I often look at the person thinking, that doesn't seem to be an appropriate way to do that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. General court etiquette, especially in rec play, is unsolicited advice. In advance, maybe say, "Do you mind if I give you a pointer?" But don't just blurt it out. I really dislike it when somebody just assumes that they're a better player than I am, and so they start giving me instructions. And it's like, I didn't come here to get instructed. I came here to hit a ball back and forth with some people and have some laughs. I didn't come here to be your student. If I wanted to be your student, I would offer you money and give you an opportunity to do it. I did see one exception. I played not too long ago with some people that turned out to be a father and a son. And the father this is actually kind of funny. The father was under the impression that he was teaching the son how to play, but the son was clearly better than the father was, and wasn't necessarily doing things YouTube orthodox. You know what I mean? Well, maybe you don't know what I mean, but see this communication. See, I have to check to see that but I think of YouTube orthodox is, a lot of YouTubers say, you hold your paddle this way and you swing it this way and you make this shot and you follow through this way. And yeah, that's good, but it's not the only way to play either. So I thought that was pretty funny that the kid was clearly better, partially because he's 25 or more years younger. And it's like, no kidding, anybody that's 25 years younger than I am can beat me, even if they never played before. That's not too hard.
Well, I had that experience when I was playing with one of my sons, and he was just learning pickleball. This is relatively recently. So I was very aware of his progress to date, what he'd been playing with me and a couple other people. He was trying to get his serve, and he was doing really well with it. And then we were playing open court with people, and someone came along and played with us and said, so you're serving incorrectly. You're hitting the ball without it bouncing, and you need to bounce the ball and then hit it. And I watched that and I thought, should I say something? Like, that is one way to serve. And also I was thinking about my son. I thought he's just trying to figure out a serve, and he's started serving this way. So maybe that he should continue that way since it's one of the acceptable ways. So maybe, when you think about using your words, this is when it gets, gets a little complex. It's like, do I speak up? Do I not speak up? And then it's like, well, my son is an adult. He can speak up. And so.
Yeah, I would let the son speak up, but in that case, it's not correct information. So especially don't give me incorrect information, because that's not correct. There are two kinds of serves, and one of which the ball has to bounce and one of which it doesn't. Before you hit it, I don't mean on the other side of the net. It has to bounce before the returning team hits it. Yeah, so unsolicited advice, especially when it's incorrect, knowing how to say it. Usually what I'll try to do is wait until after the game and then speak about it, because I don't want to start a kerfuffle. And, as I've said over and over again on our podcast, pickleball game takes 15 minutes, and then, so the worst thing that happens is you have to listen to somebody annoying for 15 minutes. Well, I just listened to a podcast episode by Tony Roig, and I've mentioned Tony and his podcast on our podcast several times. But a few weeks ago, he did a podcast on how to be a good partner. And it included things like these communications and who takes the middle and those sort of things. And then he talked about something that his teaching partner, CJ Johnson, stresses in their in-person teachings, which is, and I actually love this one. It changed my game immediately, is in between points when you're turning to walk back to the end line to serve or to return the serve, turn to face your partner while you're walking back. Maybe even make eye contact. Don't turn your back on him. Just, have that level of, yes, we're in this together. kind of communication, and it makes a huge amount of difference. One of the reasons that they talk about it is that something else that they suggest that good partners don't do is make judgmental noises or faces when you miss a shot. Because who doesn't miss shots, right? So, I used to talk when we first started doing this, I used to talk about the people. I went to play in a new place and I referred to some people as sighers, so I would miss a shot and they would just sigh at me. It's kind of like that. And if I'm playing with somebody and I miss a shot and they turn away from me to go back to the line, are they secretly sighing at me? I don't know. But if they turn to face me, that's when you tap your paddles together. You say, hey, even if that shot was terrible, you tap your paddles together and you say, better luck next time, or nice try, or wasn't that a great shot and you almost got it, and like that. So that kind of communication, the positive reinforcement through the course of a game, I think adds to the pleasure of the game.
Absolutely. I would call that joining, that you're joining with whoever's your partner in that moment. One of the things I do, because we switch partners all the time as we're playing, is that as I'm starting with my new partner, I always look to them and catch their eye and say, here we go. We got this. And so I connect with them as that you are my partner right now. In 15 minutes, I may be playing against you, but right now you're my partner and we got this. I want to say one more thing before we end, which is we're talking about that it's irritating when someone gives unsolicited advice. And it made me think about being oldish and how we can be even more pulled to give unsolicited advice because we have so much wisdom. And if we're not having an outlet for our wisdom, it might slip out in these ways of, I know that you're doing that wrong. I know that it would be better to do it this way. And definitely when you're young, you don't have that as much because you're learning. So I just want to throw that out because I think it is part of oldishness is that we are wise in general in our oldishness. And so being able to find outlets, whether it's off the court, whether it's teaching PickleBall, whether it's all the other arenas that we might have wisdom about, to find ways to share that.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's definitely the case. Yeah. But I think in real life as in PickleBall, I want to do an episode on this. What I've been thinking of is PickleBall splaining. We get people who are sure that they know everything about the game. And so they're constantly pointing out to you things that you know already or might know already, or maybe can't do, So unsolicited advice and pickle splaining.
Yes.
No, I wonder how in real life, though, I frequently stop myself from giving unsolicited advice to people because they didn't ask me for it. And people can ask if they want some advice, they can say, how do you do this? Or as I would feel like on the PickleBall court, if we're playing together and I feel like you're not doing something correctly, in between games, we can talk about it, or over a beer later, we can talk about it, or in the, whatever, but not during the game. Because during the game, I think this is one of the things that everybody has, that if I hear something critical, I turn and wrap myself around that criticism rather than stay in the flow of whatever it was that I'm doing. I just immediately turn and wrap myself to protect myself from that criticism. I think pretty much everybody does that. And so it just lifts that momentarily, maybe takes your focus off of what you're doing. So it makes it just harder. And oftentimes when I'm playing PickleBall and in real life too, I'm going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes arguing with you in my head. So instead of playing the game, I'm going to be, no, you're not right. Or, yeah, I know you're right, but what's wrong with you telling me that now? Or, whatever it is. And so I'm going to miss the next shot. So
one of my suggestions for that is to ask if someone would like your thoughts, because then not in the middle of the game, but not in, timing is everything. So in real life also, I certainly have found that with adult children. It's like at some point you don't tell them anymore, your shoes are untied or those shoes don't match or whatever it is, or whatever. Instead you start saying, I have some thoughts about this. Would you like to hear? And they can say yes or no. And if they say no, that's that. And if they say yes, you go ahead. And it also, besides that initial respect of, I'm not just going to dump this on you, it also encourages buy-in, that now they're interested or they're accepting. Yeah, I do want to hear what you have to say. And I might agree, I might not agree, but I am curious.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good approach. I like that. So we'll start practicing that with each other and we'll see how that goes.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be practicing it more. I hope that we are not at ground zero for that. I hope that we've been coming along, but there's always room for goals.
Well, I feel like our friendship and our playing of this podcast game in particular is very similar to playing pickleball in that we are learning how to play together. And we're both aware that we're learning how to play together. And I don't think either one of us is suffering from a delusion that it ought to be all complete and then perfect from that point. That we're learning and giving each other space to learn, giving ourselves space to learn is really crucial. And we are helping each other learn that.
A lifelong journey of learning.
Yeah. That's the whole point, I think. So this is probably a good place to end it. We didn't say all the words that I imagined, but that's good. That's one of the things that I like about a conversation is that it moves around and it kind of more or less stayed within the lines. Our coloring isn't perfect, but it more or less stayed within the lines. And sometimes going outside the lines is a good thing. So once again, this is one of my all-time favorite conversations with anybody. I'm looking forward to our next conversation, which will be next week, I hope, about Indigenous Peoples Day. And I'm quite certain we have a lot to say about that. Staunch conservatives might want to not put that one on their calendar.
Or maybe they really need to. But I agree with you.
We're not telling them without them asking us for advice.
And I also enjoy our conversations and being oldish together. So goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now, Janet. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. We enjoyed our visit and hope you did too. Our next episode will be on and about Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll talk about the origins, the realities, Columbus, and mourning and celebrating. You can leave comments or requests for topics or guests on this or other episodes at www.oldish.me. There's a link there too if you've wondered how you can help support our podcast. If you like what you heard today, please tell a friend and rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.